There are $1,700 billion in student loan debt in America right now. And that's 1.7 trillion, which is more than the entire economy of Canada, and more than all credit card debt combined, and more than all auto loans combined. And here is the disturbing part. Most of that money will never be paid back because the system was not designed for it to be paid back. You were told that education was an investment in your future, and that a college degree would pay for itself, and that the debt was good debt, but they lied. Welcome to paper empires where fortunes are built on lies. This is not a story about students who made bad choices. This is a story about a system that profits from those choices where the government and the banks and the universities all win while you lose. Because the college debt trap is not a bug in the system. It is the system. The promise. Let us go back to the beginning, to the moment when this trap was set. It starts in high school when you are 17 years old and you are told by everyone, your parents, your teachers, your guidance counselors, that college is not optional, it is mandatory. If you want a good job, a good life, a chance at the American dream, you must go to college. And they show you the statistics. College graduates earn $1 million more over their lifetime than high school graduates. They have lower unemployment. They live longer, healthier, happier lives. The message is clear. College equals success. No college equals failure. So you apply, you get accepted, and then comes the bill. Tuition at a public university averages $30,000 a year. At a private university, it is $60,000. So for 4 years, that is $120,000 to $240,000 before housing, before food, before books. Your parents do not have that money. Most parents do not. So you are told to take out loans, student loans, federal loans. The government will lend you the money and you can pay it back later, after you graduate, after you get that good job, after you start earning that $1 million more. It sounds reasonable. It sounds like an investment. But here is what they do not tell you. The interest starts immediately, even while you are still in school, even while you are not making any money. The debt is growing every single day, compounding. And here's the other thing they do not tell you. That job you were promised, that $1 million, for most people it does not exist. But by the time you figure that out, it is too late because you already signed the papers, you already took the money, and now you owe. Think about that. You were 17 years old when you made the biggest financial decision of your life. You could not buy alcohol, you could not rent a car, but you could sign away your financial future, and you did because everyone told you to. The trap. Here is how the trap works. Student loans are different from every other kind of debt because credit card debt you can discharge in bankruptcy, medical debt you can negotiate, mortgage debt the bank can foreclose, but then you are done. But student loans, you cannot escape them ever. If you declare bankruptcy, the loans survive. If you become disabled, the loans survive. If you die in some cases, the loans survive. They can garnish your wages, they can take your tax refund, they can take your Social Security. Student loan debt is the only debt in America that you cannot escape. Not through bankruptcy, not through death. It is permanent. Why? Because in 2005, Congress passed a law making student loans non-dischargeable in bankruptcy, both federal and private loans. The banks lobbied for it, the government passed it, and now you are stuck. Think about what that means. If you gamble away $1 million in Las Vegas, you can declare bankruptcy and start over. But if you borrow money for college and cannot pay it back, you are trapped forever. The system is designed to extract money from you for the rest of your life, and if you cannot pay, they will take it anyway. This is not justice, this is indentured servitude with a diploma. The interest. Let us talk about interest because this is where the trap becomes a nightmare. Federal student loans have interest rates between 4 and 7%, while private student loans can go up to 14%. That might not sound like much, but here is what it means in practice. If you borrow $50,000 at 6% interest and you pay it back over 20 years, you will pay $72,000 total, $22,000 in interest alone. But most people cannot afford to pay it back in 20 years, so they go on income-driven repayment plans that lower your monthly payment based on your income. Sounds helpful, right? Except the payment is often less than the interest accruing, which means your balance grows even while you are making payments. You are paying every month and you owe more than when you started. This is not a bug. This is the design. You borrowed $50,000 and 10 years later, after making payments, you now owe $60,000. You have been paying for a decade and you are deeper in debt. Some borrowers will pay for 25 years and still owe more than they borrowed, and at the end of 25 years, the remaining balance is forgiven. But that forgiven amount is treated as taxable income, so you get hit with a massive tax bill you cannot afford. You spend a quarter century paying and you still end up with debt. Think about that. You did everything right. You went to college, you got a degree, you got a job, you made payments for 25 years, and you are still not free. How is that possible in a country that calls itself the land of opportunity? The universities. Now let us talk about where that money goes because someone is getting rich from this system, and it is not you. College tuition has increased 1,200% since 1980. 1,200%. While inflation over the same period was only 300%. Housing costs have tripled. Healthcare costs have quadrupled. But college? It has gone up 12 times. Why? Because universities know you will pay, or more accurately, they know the government will lend you the money to pay. And once the government guarantees the loans, there is no limit to how much universities can charge. This is the moral hazard. When loans are guaranteed, prices become infinite. So universities build luxury dorms, they build rock-climbing walls and lazy rivers, they hire armies of administrators, they pay presidents seven-figure salaries, and they pass the cost to you. Meanwhile, professor salaries have barely increased while adjunct professors, the people actually teaching, are paid poverty wages. 50% of college instructors are part-time with no benefits, and some qualify for food stamps. The money is not going to education, it is going to bureaucracy, to branding, to competing for rankings, to building empires, and you are paying for it for the rest of your life. Think about this. The university you attended probably has a multi-billion-dollar endowment. Harvard has 50 billion, Yale has 40 billion. They could give free tuition to every student and barely notice, but they do not, because the system works perfectly for them. They get paid up front and full guaranteed by the government with zero risk while you have all of it. The government. But the universities are not the villains here, or not the only villains, because the real architect of this system is the government. The federal government is the largest student loan lender in America. It owns 1.6 trillion of that 1.7 trillion in debt. And here is the uncomfortable truth. The government makes money from your loans. When you take out a federal student loan, the government charges you interest, and that interest generates profit. The Congressional Budget Office estimated the government would make billions in profit from student loans. Read that again. The government profits from students going into debt. Think about what that means. The government encourages you to borrow, it guarantees the loans so universities can charge whatever they want. Then it collects interest from you for decades, and if you default, it garnishes your wages and takes your tax refund. This is not a safety net. This is a profit center. The government is not helping you get an education. It is trapping you in debt and extracting wealth from you for the rest of your working life. And the cruelest part? You cannot vote your way out of it because both political parties support this system. Democrats and Republicans both voted for the bankruptcy law. Both parties take money from universities. Both parties benefit from the status quo. You were told this was about opportunity, but it was really about control. The lie of meritocracy. Here is the lie you were sold. If you work hard, if you get good grades, if you go to college, you will succeed. America is a meritocracy and anyone can make it if they try. But student debt proves that is a lie because the system does not reward hard work, it punishes it. The people who did everything right, who followed all the rules, who believed in the system, are the ones drowning in debt. You worked hard in high school, you got into college, you studied, you graduated, you got a job, and now you are 35 years old, and you cannot afford a house. You cannot afford kids. You cannot afford to get married. You cannot afford to save for retirement. You did everything society told you to do, and you are worse off than your parents were at your age. Meanwhile, someone who skipped college and learned a trade is debt-free, owns a home, and has savings. Someone who was born rich went to the same university as you, paid cash, and graduated with connections and opportunities you will never have. The system does not reward merit. It rewards wealth, and it punishes ambition. Think about this. The people most harmed by student debt are the ones who tried to better themselves. First-generation college students, poor students, students who believed education was the path to success. They are the ones buried in debt because they had no one to warn them, no one to tell them it was a trap. And society blames them for it. You should have known better. You should have chosen a cheaper school. You should have majored in something practical. You should have worked your way through college like your grandfather did in 1965 when tuition was $800 a year. This is victim blaming, and it is how the system protects itself. The economic consequences. But this is not just a personal problem. It is an economic catastrophe. $1.7 trillion in student debt is $1.7 trillion not spent on cars, houses, businesses, or children. An entire generation is financially paralyzed. The birth rate is falling, home ownership among young people is at historic lows, small business creation has declined, all because an entire generation is drowning in debt before they even start their lives. And this affects everyone because when young people cannot afford houses, the housing market suffers. When they cannot afford cars, the auto industry suffers. When they cannot start businesses, the economy stagnates. Student debt is not just a burden on borrowers, it is a drag on the entire economy. A slow-motion economic collapse that everyone is pretending not to see. But the banks do not care, the universities do not care, the government does not care because they already got paid. You are the only one left holding the bill. The psychology of debt. Let us talk about what this does to you psychologically, because debt is not just a number, it is a weight, a constant presence, a voice in your head telling you that you failed. You wake up thinking about it, you go to bed thinking about it, and every financial decision is shaped by it. Should you take that job you love that pays less? No. You need to pay your loans. Should you start a business? Too risky. You need steady income for your loans. Should you have kids? Maybe later, after the loans are paid off. Except later never comes because the loans never end. Debt changes how you see yourself. You are not a person, you are a debtor. Your worth is measured by what you owe, and your freedom is limited by your balance. And society tells you it is your fault. You made bad choices, you borrowed too much, you should have known better. But how could you have known? You were 17 and everyone you trusted told you to do it. The system was designed to trap you. This is not about personal responsibility. This is about institutional predation. And the psychological toll is real because studies show student debt is linked to depression, anxiety, and delayed life milestones. People with student debt are less likely to get married, have children, or buy homes, and they are more likely to live with their parents into their 30s. This is not a generation of failures. This is a generation that was failed. The future. So what happens next? Where does this end? The debt keeps growing as more students borrow every year. The average debt per borrower keeps increasing, and the repayment rates keep declining. At some point, the system breaks, either through mass default or through forgiveness or through economic collapse, but it will break because it is unsustainable. $1.7 trillion in debt that cannot be repaid is not a market, it is a ticking time bomb. And when it explodes, the people who created this system will be fine because the banks will be bailed out. The universities will keep their endowments, the government will print more money, but you will still be in debt. Because the college debt trap was never about education, it was about control, about creating a permanent debtor class. People who cannot afford to take risks, people who cannot afford to quit bad jobs, people who cannot afford to challenge the system, people who are too busy surviving to fight back. That is the point because debt is not just economic, it is political, a tool of social control. And it works because you are too exhausted to resist. The lesson. Here is what the college debt trap teaches us. The system is not broken, it is working exactly as designed. You were told education was the key to success, but education has become a mechanism for wealth extraction, a way to transfer money from the poor and middle class to the rich and powerful. You were told to follow the rules, but the rules were written to exploit you. You were told this was about opportunity, but it was always about profit. The college debt trap is not a mistake. It is a choice, a deliberate policy decision made by people who will never have to live with the consequences. And until we recognize that nothing will change. Because the thing about paper empires is this. They are built on promises, on debt, on the belief that tomorrow will be better than today, but eventually the promises run out, the debt becomes unbearable, and the empire collapses. We are watching it happen in real time. One defaulted loan at a time, one broken dream at a time, one person at a time realizing they were lied to. The question is, what do we do about it? Because $1,700 billion in chains is not sustainable, it is not moral, and it is not accidental. It is a choice, and we can make a different one. If this story opened your eyes, subscribe to Paper Empires. History has the answers, and we will show you where to look.